Hello, everyone. We are really feeling guided by spirit to go a little bit deeper with all of you, to share with you some of our personal experiences that we've had with the different shamanic journeys that we have been on with this healing path. Maybe share some of our spiritual experiences through channeling and just whatever we feel like we're prompted to share with you during this episode. We kind of want to open up the possibilities for you by sharing these stories and let you know that of the kinds of things that we're all capable of as multidimensional beings in this beautiful Aquarian age. Welcome to Modern Sages Podcast.
I'm Jenn Gilbreth.
And I'm Candace Coons.
With over 25 years combined, we have delivered messages from beyond,
explored ancient healing wisdom, and integrated these profound teachings into our everyday life.
We are passionate about creating new ways of being human in the modern age by integrating the wisdom of the past with the present and coming into remembrance of who we truly are.
Are you ready to change your relationship to life itself? If the answer is yes, your journey begins now.
Before diving deeper into this topic, we wanted to share with you about calendula.
Calendula is an edible herb. You can use this in your teas. You can use it in your salads and soups. You can put it in bread. There's just so many different ways that you can use it. Most of the time you'll see it as an oil. People put it in a lot of skin products because of all of its medicinal properties with the skin. But it actually kind of has a sweet taste. So if you're looking to add more sweetness to whatever you're making, it's actually really good. And it's just loaded with minerals and vitamins and has all of these amazing benefits. So it's a way to kind of integrate this into your diet as well, besides taking in cat form or oil. So yeah, same thing as the other herbs that we talked about. It's anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, anti-parasitic.
It's kind of funny that a lot of them are anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, helps with digestion. Most of the herbs that we talk about, if not all, deal with that, and they aid in that, which is so funny because naturally, if we lean on what Mother Earth offers us as like lifeline for our life here, and then we eat things like breads and carbs and things that clog up our artery, like clog up our systems. Like you can just think about your energy level, and I like to even think about like when you have knee problems, is like, well, when you eat more carby food, you might have more joint pain, but like herbs are here to help
inflammation.
Yeah, it's like they're here to help take away the inflammation. When if you think about what we naturally need in life is that anti-inflammation stuff within us. So it's kind of funny how it counteracts or counterbalances what the world deems as like healthy or good for us now.
Right. We're just reintroducing what, again, Pachamama made for us to take care of our bodies. And if we eat foods and we incorporate the things that were created through her plants and trees and, flowers, the things that grow in the ground that she made, it has those like natural medicinal qualities for our body, because the things that create inflammation in the body are flour, red meat, white sugar, right?
Processed
Dairy,
anything,
processed food, preservatives, things like that. So when we say that herbs are anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, it's like it's reversing those effects of the bad things that we put in our body. It's reducing that inflammation that is caused by the other foods that our body is having this reaction to.
Yeah. And if you think about this blows my mind, is that people will drink, let's say they drink Pepsi or Coke, because you can literally, if you have an oil stain from your car, you can use, is it Coke?
Oh yeah. And
to remove the stains, right? But think about that. We put that in our body. How awful is that for your body if it can freaking remove Coke off of the ground, or if it can remove oil off of the ground?
Yes.
So if you think
That's
about
pretty
that,
wild.
it is so wild. And then we have
Mhm.
teas where a lot of people are like, "Oh, I can't drink teas," or teas aren't as familiar, or it's not like as common of a thing. I mean, out here in the South, you go to gas stations and you can buy like sweet tea, but
Oh, every kind of sweet tea you can
it's so
imagine.
funny.
Yep.
But it's funny because we naturally tend to lean on things that are not as healthy for us, and then introducing things that do bring, like you could drink black tea or green tea or any kind of tea that could also help give you an energy
Calendula
boost.
tea.
Calendula that's going to keep that energy there versus like sugar crashes from all the soda and all the
Yes.
energy drinks. And so it's just funny to see how Mother Earth has provided so much. And it's not saying that any of that that we do is wrong or bad, but how can we find a balance to help our body instead of tear it down in the long
Mhm.
run? And
Yep.
this is a perfect
And
example
this
of
is an
it.
example of what you can do. And calendula has it creates kind of a natural protective lining in the stomach and the digestive tract. So it's very soothing to the digestive system. It also helps people with hormonal issues. It helps regulate or reduce your menstrual cramps or relieve menstrual cramps.
Mm-hmm.
It helps with hot flashes. It's not Calendula, though, they don't recommend women who are pregnant to take or to use calendula internally. I mean, you could use it externally for stretch marks or whatever, because it's very good for the skin and moisturizing for the skin mixed with your different moisturizers. But you shouldn't take it internally when you're pregnant because it does have an effect on your hormones. So
Mm.
this is something that you should also think about. But it helps with ulcers, helps relieve pain from ulcers, and it also boosts collagen production. So again, a skin thing, you can use it to help with wounds and repair skin, but you can also use it to moisturize and help you look younger because it
Right.
boosts the collagen production in the skin. So yeah, calendula is amazing and it's
Very,
pretty.
very powerful. Yes.
Mhm.
And it is very beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we are going to be sharing some of our personal stories with our journeys and some of the healing experiences that we've experienced in our lives to give an example to others about what this can lead to, because we provided the tools as far on our YouTube and our podcast, as far as like how to breathe, how to practice mindfulness, and then how to do the tube of light meditation to get yourself centered and aligned and in the right space energetically. And then we did the journey to the sacred meadow to have them meet their animal allies and begin to create stronger bonds with the team that we have on the other side of the veil who assist us in this human journey, which is our angels, our guides, our animal allies. But that also, with practice, you can go into deeper and deeper levels of altered consciousness. That is just the beginning. And that's why we provided those tools, because it's if you can start with your breath and go to the mindfulness practice and do the tube of light and get comfortable with that, and then start journeying and get comfortable with that, then you can start exploring all the different dimensions, the lower, the middle, and the upper dimensions, and start having these experiences that can create shifts or healing for you. And so we've talked about it, but we really haven't gone into depth about some of our own personal experiences to get people an idea of what is possible. Now, just because I had an experience doesn't mean that they will, or the things that you experience. That everybody's journeys are unique. They're never exactly the same. You
Yeah.
never know what you're going to see or experience, but at the same time, we have access to miracles. We have access to healing in our lives. These
Mm-hmm.
things are possible because we've experienced it and we've witnessed it, and we've personally, and we've also witnessed it in other people that we've worked with. So, yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to kind of share our stories and anything that we feel inspired to share today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of reflecting on what I want to share and what I want to talk about. And I know in the past I've talked about, experiencing a past life of the witch trials, and we talked about that already. I'm trying to think of a couple of powerful ones that aren't like too personal too, because some things are like extremely personal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think I'll talk about when I went to so sometimes I'll just go to my meadow and I'll just say,
Yes.
okay, what do I need to learn, or what's the message that needs to come in? And especially if I'm having a hard time or I'm feeling like lost or alone or overwhelmed, I'll go to my meadow, and I always have this little squirrel on my right shoulder who comes often. And then I have my moose who he's there for me all the time too. Every time I go there, he's there. Um, and one time I was just really struggling with something going on in life, and I came to my meadow, and my moose picked me up and like put me on his antlers. They're not called antlers, are they? What are they called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his antlers. So
Mm-hmm.
he like picked me up and was like kind of like cradling me, like carrying me. And he brought me down to the lower world, which is a lot of inner child healing and a lot of stuff like that. And he took me to like this cave. And I don't know if you've seen Harry Potter, but when in Harry Potter, when they're trying to open up one of the doors and there's like a bunch of keys flying around, um, I
Yes.
saw that. And he was like grabbing or like bringing me different keys that had different messages on the keys. And it was like almost like I am affirmations. It was like an I am affirmation, and then it was in detail a little message connected to it. And I had gone with him, and this happened to me for 5 days in a row, where I went there and I was like, what do I need to know? And it was like every time he brought me a different message or a different affirmation. And then I sat there, I like held it and read it. And then I just like sat with my moose, and it was so healing for me, and it brought me so much reassurance. And it's something that's so different. Like that's so unique and so odd, but it was so healing for what I needed. And the messages that came in were like totally out of my wheelhouse. Like it wasn't like I was making up what these messages were saying, but they just came so strong for me that it was like what my soul needed to be reminded of in the circumstances that I was facing. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful.
That's so awesome. Yeah, there was another situation that I've noticed this that over several times where the same as you, where I've done a certain particular, I've gone to a certain particular area more than once to achieve certain kinds of healings and understanding. And the place, another one of the places I've gone often to is the cottage. There is a middle world journey where you can go to a cottage and meet with your other spirit guides, and also to meet with individuals that are still here in form in this life. You can meet with their soul there and talk about the particular experiences that are happening on a soul plane level and talk to them soul to soul. And I've done this several times with my beloved, at times where I feel like there is a struggle in understanding where each other is coming from.
Mhm.
And then it ends up going into more of a power struggle as opposed to doing a cooperative conversation or understanding each other from where we're coming from. Or like we'll feel stuck. The energy will feel stuck in some way. And I noticed that when I would go to the cottage and I would call on his energy to meet with me there, and then we would sit on the porch and we would just sit in the rocking chairs, or I have a porch swing and some rocking chairs on that front porch, and we would just sit and talk. I would talk to him about from a soul level, the struggles that I was experiencing and what I was trying to get him to understand about where I was coming from a heart space. And I would tell him how much I love him and I'm so grateful for him. So it wouldn't just be talking about that, but I would also fill that conversation with love and gratitude and appreciation. And then what I would find is that in this plane, in regular everyday life, what would happen is all of a sudden he would approach me and say, you know what? I've been thinking about what was said, and I feel like I understand where you're coming from. Is I feel like it was coming more from this place. And he would mirror that back to me, the conversations that we had in the cottage. And for me, that was miraculous because for many years prior to knowing how to do this and how to journey here, this had been a struggle where we didn't get what each other was trying to say. There was communication issues. And so for me, this was like a miracle that he would come to me and approach me, but then also not only approach me, but have this like deeper understanding without me trying to explain it or trying to come from this angle or that angle, or just the different dynamics that happen during conversations of men and women trying to understand each other. It was incredible. And so I started doing that more and more. And it created beautiful shifts in our communication. And like I said, I worked on it on an inner plane level. I didn't put all of, the weight on our external conversations in this world and try to get to understand each other on a mental level, emotional level. I would work on inner plane. I would go work with him on the inner planes, go work with him at the cottage. And then I noticed that all the conversations would unfold in such a beautiful way. And then we walked away from those experiences feeling so much more understood and loved and supported. So that's kind of one of the examples that I've experienced on a personal level that had a direct effect, on my relationships, but it was huge.
Well, and think of how amazing that tool is as well. Like to, instead of losing your cool or saying things that you wish that you hadn't, it gives you perspective and also helps you align soul to soul and also soul to soul healing, but connection. Instead of being hot-headed or in the physical world, it's like taking a step back to remember and see you for who you truly are versus the circumstances in life. So that's really powerful.
Yes, absolutely. I would love for you to share one of your experiences. I think you mentioned it briefly in another show, but I would love you to do it again if you had. When you journeyed to the Akashic Records and we went to the room, because when you visit the Akashic Records, this is an energy level of consciousness that people go to when they cross the veil and when they leave this world. It's where you do your life review. It's where you can get access to other lifetimes and the soul agreements and soul contracts that you've made in this life or with other individuals, because we do create these agreements with our tribes, with our soul tribes, and with this life in general, like things we want to accomplish and things we want to experience. And people come into our lives for certain reasons. And so there's just so much that you can explore at the Akashic Records. And one of the rooms that it's over in the Akashic Records, it's like a side room. It's the place where people do life reviews, but you can bring it almost looks like a scroll. It's like your energy for this lifetime. And there's certain agreements that you've made for this lifetime, like I was saying before, but you can take that into the room and look, now this sounds a little abstract, but it's the best way I can explain it. And maybe you can help me here too, but it's almost like there's a place in the wall that you place it. And all of a sudden the whole room
comes to
life in these certain experiences during your life review where you're in the middle of that and you get to see it it's like you get to feel it, what you experience, but a little bit detached. It's almost like you feel it and you review over it, but from the outside. And we did this journey with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you feel comfortable, but I just thought that was such a beautiful experience to witness. Can you share
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So it was very interesting because I wasn't necessarily sure. And every time, and I've taken a couple of people to the Akashic Records into this room, and they've experienced very different, but very similar things at the same time. It's like it shows
Mm-hmm.
up differently, but the message really comes in pretty strong in the same concept. And that doesn't have to be for everybody, but it has been for me and the others that I've taken there, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But once I put the scroll in, it was like I stood in the center of the room, and it was like I saw myself as a little girl and I was playing hopscotch. And I've never been good with geometry or with math. Like I just have always struggled with that. Like it's been something that hasn't been an easy strong suit for me.
I can
But I
relate.
was watching myself, yeah, do hopscotch as a little girl. And I looked down and I noticed sacred geometry on the hopscotch. And I was like, wait, what? It's here? And then it showed me throughout my whole life how sacred geometry, and I probably should study more about that now that I'm talking about it again, because I don't know much about it. But it was like I could see how this sacred geometry was everywhere in my life and how I was looking at it the wrong way, how I was looking at numbers and I was looking at pictures and I was looking at all these things the way the world wanted me to versus what I was innately seeing myself with and my spiritual eyes versus the worldly perception that I needed to look at life through. And it's funny as I'm reflecting, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I need to think about that more. But it was like all of a sudden, these big wounds of me not being smart, me not feeling smart enough, me viewing life differently than others. It was like all of a sudden I could see that there was a reason why. And it was because I was different, because I didn't have to live life in that box or in the mental aspect of the world. I didn't come here to live that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was so interesting. So as I'm moving forward, I'm like seeing through my whole life, different times leading up to this moment. And then all of a sudden I feel like all of a sudden the whole room was just full of like this white bright light, and it was like an undescribable white light that was so powerful and so big and so vast that my whole body was like pulsing, like out my fingertips and my toes and in my hair, like every single part of my body was just like radiating from this white light. And it felt so calm and so loving and so loyal. And as I turned to look, it was like I wanted to put this white light into a human form. Like I wanted to put it into what I always grew up thinking God was. And when I tried to do that, I was told no. Like I'm more than that. And that's like a perception of who I am, but I'm much more than that. And I just sat there when I was laying there, I was like, had my eyes, I was like crying. And it was so powerful just to feel what God's love really was, what the great creator's energy could do, and the healing that came in. And it like healed my body. It healed my connection to how I didn't feel smart in this world. And it gave me permission to see that I am the way that I am, but there's a reason, and I'm not bad and wrong if I might not be as street smart as some other people, right? But it really brought in this amazing healing. And it also helped me get to know that God is different than how I had to perceive him in the physical realm, that he was much more, or this great spirit, this great creator was much more than what I had always thought, but it was such a
Yes.
profound and soul changing experience.
That is so amazing.
Yeah,
And that changes you, right?
it
It
does.
changes your experience because somebody could have told you that,
Yeah,
but when you feel that moving through your body or consciousness and
it's
you
totally
have,
different.
it's a very different experience.
I'm
And
curious, did you, when that was happening, could you see that happening? Like when
mhm,
you watched, were you just like watching this huge white light? Like, did
mhm.
you experience all that too?
But it's but it would, from my perspective of feeling that love, it's almost like, even though there's no separation, there's still a level of boundaries and respect. I don't know how to explain it, because it's still for you. It's still for
Yeah.
your experience. If it were for me, I would completely be absorbed in
Yeah.
that, right?
That's how it
So
was
it's
for
like,
me too with other
yeah,
people, is like you can feel it and witness it, but it's like you're not the one receiving it. It's
yeah.
like you're holding space for the other to receive it versus you experiencing it.
Hmm.
But you can see it happening,
But
which is
it
so
really,
cool.
which
Yeah.
is very validating, right?
Yeah.
Because this is another thing you discover when you're on this path, is how you can journey with others.
Uh-huh.
And like what I'll tell people is say, you'll know when you're on a journey when you've already seen it. And then I say it out loud.
Mhm.
You don't need to step back and go do it again.
Yeah.
It's a confirmation for you that I'm with you, that I'm
You know,
there.
and this draws into this other topic that I haven't talked to you about today, but um last night I had a dream, and I know that when you have soul connections, like I know you're my medicine woman and you're here to help me and guide me, and you said at some point, you're like, at some point, maybe when you're sleeping or if you're sick or whatever, my spirit will show up to you and like help
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same concept of like doing journey work, is like when you get comfortable or when you're more trusting of what you experience in journey work, you can also experience a lot of things in dreams too.
Yes. And I remember
But
when you got sick, you had another one too.
uh-huh, when I had COVID, yeah, you were
Uh-huh.
like clearing out my space and stuff, which was so crazy. But last
Mm-hmm.
night, actually, I had like a past friendship come to me, and it was like I was reliving this heavy trauma of like bitter rejection.
Oh.
Um, and I don't know why, but it was so strong for me. And it was like I had felt betrayed, and then that person was coming to me telling me why that happened and how that person dealt with it and what they experienced in that concept. And I
Wow.
just remember being so sad in my dream. And I walk over to you, and you're, for whatever reason, it was like in a moving trailer, but you were like setting up this house in like this moving trailer.
That sounds like my life. I'm
That's true.
constantly going somewhere.
But I came to you and I like sat on the back of this moving trailer, and I was just like saying how sad I was, but how I understood. And then you were like, it's time to lean into that emotion. And it was like you kind of helped push me into this emotion of like feeling that complete sadness, but finding beauty in the sadness. And when I woke up, I was like, oh, that was a lot. Like I woke up right afterward, and I was like, that was a lot of stuff to think about and a lot of things to work through and to just feel. But it wasn't like I needed to fix anything. It was almost like having this soul to soul connection with that person, of feeling and understanding and having more of a completion. But then it was like my spirit didn't want to let it go. And then you're like, well, you need to lean into this. What do you need to
Mm-hmm.
feel?
What do you
What's
need
the
to feel?
lesson into it? And so it was just funny because I'm like thinking about it now. I'm like, oh, that was so, like, even that is a journey. Even when
Yep.
I'm sleeping, your soul can travel and it can do things. And like, I know for myself, I've worked with someone who I'm like, I know this person, or I've worked with their deceased loved ones who are coming in. And I'm like, I know this person. I've worked with them. We work together to bring you here. Like there's so many
Yes.
things like that, that it doesn't have to only be in journey, it can be in your dream time as well. It's so profound.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you shared that journey, because I feel like that really opens people up. Like, not only does journey provide a wonderful opportunity for healing, but it also makes you so aware of how connected we all are. Like even the fact that, we work together, and we do journeys together. And I mentioned, I'm like, I'm going to start showing up. Like you're going to start becoming more aware of me showing up in the inner planes with you, even at different times. And we've here and we've may have had personal experiences about a loved one who's deceased and they come visit us in a dream. And we know that that was their soul coming to visit us. But we don't have to leave this world in order for that to happen.
Yes.
And when you're journeying together, it strengthens that bond, that energetic connection where you start to notice these things more. Like there was another experience where you were sick with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I was meditating and praying for you and sending an energy and all of this energy towards you. And then you sent a text. I don't remember when it was, a couple hours later or the next day. You're like, it's so crazy. I saw you come to my, to my house, and you were using rosemary and roses and I think it was juniper and
it was juniper and roses and rosemary.
yeah.
Yeah. You were like
And I was smudging, which gets
placing
rid of
it
bacteria
in my
and it raises frequency.
space.
Right. So, but it was, you felt it, even though I didn't tell you, you had that experience where you're open and you were able to receive. It's like you're able to really feel into your multidimensional realities even more on a conscious level,
Mm-hmm.
which is so awesome. And the other thing that came to my mind that when you were sharing that is that things are triggering us, or we're feeling discomfort at the perfect time. I think this is another thing that journeys teach us, is that things will be revealed to us when it's time, when when it's being called for healing. Because
Yes.
pain has purpose again. It creates that initiative, that fire, or this energy of investigation. But when you do journey work, sometimes you have an intention to go heal something in particular, but sometimes you'll be journeying and these things will just come up spontaneously. You never
Mm-hmm.
know. But whatever it is, it's perfect for wherever you're at that time. Like you're ready. You're
Mm-hmm.
ready to be shown these things in order to shift it, to heal it, and to move past it, and to let go and to move on. Otherwise, it wouldn't be revealed to you.
Right.
Because that's one thing, is that I realize we're so surrounded with so much love and support from the other
Yes,
side,
we
from the
are.
universe. And they're never going to present things during journey work that is not aligned with their absolute highest good. Like you won't even, those certain things are not necessary
Mm-hmm.
for your growth and healing. And they know that's what they want for us.
Well, and it's funny because even that, like, I'm thinking about when we discovered the book Witch by Lisa
Mm-hmm.
Lister, the first chapter, we're like, oh my gosh, this is pure chills, right? But when I had
Mm-hmm.
gone to my landscape or my meadow during that time when we were like diving into that concept, I had these three, I guess you call them witches, but like these three women who were like in black clothes in my meadow. And it was like I had like a lot of cobwebs, and they were there like clearing out these cobwebs or like cleaning my meadow, but they were like burning things like it was like a big bonfire. And when I got in there, I was like, did I not align? Is something wrong? And it was like when I walked up to them, they're like, no, we're here to get rid of the things that aren't serving. So they were like throwing things into this big fire and watching it burn. And it was so symbolic, but at first I was like, what? But it was so cool.
Yeah, that is so neat. I know, it reminds me, I just recently did a journey with the shamanic friend of mine that lives near me.
Mhm.
And there was an incident that happened not too long ago. And I noticed that since that situation, there was a little bit of hurt and sadness in my heart. And I was like, gosh, I've released a sacred ceremony. It's still not releasing. So obviously there's something with this energy that I need to work with on some level. Right.
Yeah.
So when I reached out to him, so I don't know this is what I'm feeling. I don't know why it's there, and I'm not sure what we need to do with it. I just want to see where it takes us. And so anyway, I got there and he's like, "Are you sure you don't want to release?" I said, "No, I'm not sure if I want to release it. I don't know if I need to release it or shift it. I don't know if that's necessary." And he just laughed. He's like, "That's the way a true medicine woman talks." Because usually most people who come in were like, "Oh, get rid of it." Cut it away, release it, shift it, whatever. And a medicine woman comes in and says, "I don't know if I'm supposed to release it."
What's the
I don't
lesson
know.
here
Like,
and
what's the
why?
lesson? Why is it here? It's here for a reason. I need to figure out what it is. But I would love for you to assist me and to get your non-biased perspective. And so we went and journeyed. And I ended up being taken to the lower world, meeting with Pachamama and her soul. And she just embraced me and held me on the beach, and we just sat together. And all of a sudden she takes my hand, and the energy in front of us began to turn into these, it looked like smoke, but they turned into portals of energy. And I could feel it pulling me as it started turning. I could feel its energy pulling me in. And so I went inside, and it looked like a tunnel, but it was all smoky and spinning, is kind of what it reminded me of. But we go into that portal of energy, and it opens up to the right to a doorway. And I go into that doorway, and there is a woman standing there. And she looks like a high priestess. And she's standing there, and she's very sad. And she gave all of this energy and her story of why she was there. She had felt betrayed, and she was isolated because she was feared. And when she was relieved I was there, because I'm opening up the door of allowing her to come out of this space that she was being held in. And I brought her back with me through this portal to the beach of where we were at originally with Pachamama. And then another one opened up, another like portal, smoky portal of energy that opened up to like a tunnel. And I went down that, and there was a door, and I opened up the gate, and there was this woman that looked very poor. She was in rags, and she was crying and sad, and she had been abandoned. And I could feel death all over her, the energy of death. So I knew she had experienced loss. And then she had been isolated because she had no clout of where she was at. She had no status. And so she was put away, in essence, away from her civilization and isolated. And I could feel that abandonment, but also the feelings, again, of betrayal, of abandonment, but just loss, because she was mourning still, as well. And so anyway, I brought her back, and I was like, "You're not alone. You're not alone. No more. No more of that." So I brought her out of the tunnel, and I brought her to the beach. And then a huge tiger showed up. And the energy, the feeling I felt when this tiger showed up is like, even though it was majestic and powerful, I felt like a mother to a child. I felt so drawn to the tiger. And I just looked at, like I was looking at my baby for the first time. Like I missed its paws and its hair and its, ears, and the soft, just everything about it. It was just like I just took her into me, just breathe her into me. It'd been a long time since I had had her. And I knew that it had been so long that it had been connected to the first woman, that was that priestess lady. And then it felt like it was so far ago. In fact, the shaman that was with me, he's like, "This is like long ago." He's like, "I feel like it was at the beginning of this age, of the 26,000 period of this age, that this was connected. So this has been in your energetic field for thousands and thousands of years." But as I brought them closer to me and they merged back into my energetic system, and I reclaimed them back into me. A portal of energy moved around my body, where I saw how that energy had had a domino effect. I'd been carrying it through this period of time where it had manifested those energies of betrayal and loss and abandonment, and not being able to share gifts with the world because I may be perceived as whatever, and connect that witch wound energy too, very similar to that. But it'd been that long, right? But I could see all the different ways it manifested in different lifetimes moving around me. And not that I saw every single one, but I recognized that those were lifetimes that it was connected to, as it whirled around me and that energy merged into my energy. We became one energy. And then that pain that I felt in my chest went away. It just disappeared. Right. So I realized through that experience that that was a catalyst for my healing. And I'm so grateful to that person for coming to my life, because I know that was an agreement that we had. If I
Right.
hadn't had that catalyst, I wouldn't have reached out to my friend and said, I need you to step back for a second, journey with me, non-biased, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know where we're going, but let's go do this, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it created this catalyst for this journey, this energy, and then spirit showed me what it needed. And it wasn't so
Yeah.
much of it was like a reclamation instead of a retrieval, like a soul retrieval. It had a different energy, because when the energy did merge with me, which I forgot to mention, I felt like I was a Roman candle. My whole body lit up. I felt on fire in my whole body, physically, even on a physical level, I could feel it. And so there was something, that energy was reclaimed within me. And then after that, within 3 days, it's recommended after you do a sacred journey that you should do some kind of ceremony. And we've talked about the importance of sacred ceremony, of how that bringing into physical form helps with your integration. It helps this human experience, helps you in this human experience really integrate all the information that was received from it
Mm-hmm.
by doing something physical. So I did a sacred ceremony at home, and I ended up buying 2 crystals that represented the high priestess and the wounded healer and my tiger energy, and burned resins and gave thanks and wrote in my journal what it was and burned those in a little fire in my little sanctuary. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I was telling you when I told you about this journey prior to
Yeah.
us talking about, I was like, if I would have talked about that on a mental level and try to share it and process, I could have done this and try to, moved around this energy for months, maybe even years, trying to really understand it, this and that. I spend 2 hours and journey, and then it's just understood and released. I mean, it's just an amazing
It's
how
beautiful.
amazing and powerful this work is. So it is relevant today, even though it's ancient healing practices and we never know exactly how it's going to unravel once you're there. It's still relevant in modern times, even though this memory went back 26,000 years ago,
Right.
but it's still connected with me at this time and was able to bring healing and empowerment for me. And here we are in the Aquarian age.
How beautiful.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it shows that anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different ways and so many different things that journey work can do to help and to heal and to move things through. And I love that you didn't know where you were going to go or what you were going to do. You're just here. I'm here. What do I
Mm-hmm.
need to know? And then, of course, the great creator, our ancestors, our higher self brings in that awareness to help us heal. And that's what it's all about. Is I love that even the shaman that you worked with, he didn't tell you everything you were experiencing. He said, okay, let's bring it here, and then held sacred space for you while you experienced it
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And that to me is one of the most profound things about journey work, is that no one does it for you. You do it for yourself, and you receive the information. We can't control how it happens, what goes on. Like even when we were exploring the West, or we were going to visit the whale in the ocean,
That was so cool.
it was totally not what you had planned, right?
No. Mm-mm.
But it was like
So neat.
yeah, like it was. And so even in that space, like we went to go communicate with this whale to understand the direction of the West, about emotions, about diving deeper into your emotional space. But when we got there, I was like so worried to get into the water. Like I was like so fearful of getting into the water. And finally I get in, and like we're drawn to this underwater civilization. And we're
Mm-hmm.
like watching this civilization from underwater, and we
Mhm.
both were like spinning, and we were like, there was so much going on that we were like, okay, we got to come back because it was so much to take in.
Totally unexpected.
And you
Totally
couldn't control,
unexpected.
like, you couldn't
Yes.
control what I was experiencing because it was like, this is
Mhm.
your experience, and I'm here to guide you, to hold space, to be
Mhm.
your medicine woman. But also, like, I trust that spirit's got a greater plan. So I'm going to lead you to what I know, and then we're going to surrender and trust. And that's so beautiful. Like, talk about the
Yes.
ultimate trust, but also knowing that it's not us, and we don't go to someone to give us the answers, which is why a lot of times, like, I love Reiki and I love energy work, but sometimes we can become reliant on other people to give us guidance or to give us information. And I feel like even there's this shift within me doing sessions is I want to help people learn how to do it for themselves so that they don't become reliant. Like, can you give me a message? No, like, let's help you find tools to receive your own messages. And I'm here to help you.
Mhm.
But it's almost like when we, and that's the true method of a healer, is giving them change, giving them ideas and opportunities, but letting them do the healing themselves. It's not you who's doing it. So I
It's
think it's
joyful.
powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's joyful. It's like, and I think when you come into this remembrance and you understand that there's no competition, there's no hierarchy, there's no one above the other, even though you're provide or assisting in this awakening this time around. I remember having this conversation with you at the beginning. I said, just because I'm your medicine woman now doesn't mean I've always been your, you may have been my medicine woman in the past. This may be something that we do for each other to
Mhm.
assist us back into remembrance. So, but being able to come from that point of view, it keeps you humble and present and
Mhm.
open,
Mhm.
into maybe beyond what you thought or beyond what you thought was possible. I mean, even like what you were talking about with the West, we journey into the West when we go into the medicine wheel and all the gifts of the West, which are amazing. Um, but then they brought us to a whole other level dimension, and that was a shock. Like I mean, I believed it was possible. It's not that I don't think that's possible, but it just happened. It's like that's one thing about journeys, is that it will pull you into its own life. Like it's you at first you're going through a process, but then all of a sudden it just takes off on its own. It's sort of like being in a dream where all of a sudden you're dreaming and then you come back and you're like, oh, I was dreaming. It's kind of similar in that sense, where all of a sudden things just start happening and unfolding and moving, and all of a sudden you're like, gosh, I'm in another space of consciousness. It's right now. I'm
Mhm.
aware that I'm in another space of consciousness, which is interesting. It's something
Mhm.
to get used to. But journeys are just limitless.
Yeah, and the last thing I would talk about is also going to talk to the galactic family through journey work as well. Is we both have experienced this, but it's like I always imagine climbing up to the top of my tree, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm beamed up, like past the earth, into the stars, into this galaxy, like seeing all these things. And I always am in like this one room, and I'm in like, it feels like a tic tac, like I guess you could say the place that we're in, but it's like, it almost looks like an operating table with like these metal stools, but like I'll have conversations and talk to like galactic people, and like I just feel their energy and I like get into that space. And I've done a lot of it for myself, which I feel like at some point I'll do more outside of that. But it's a very vulnerable
Yeah.
thing to talk about. Some people aren't really that open, but it's it's interesting because you feel it, and it's like I've had so many different things healing, whether I've been pulling something out of my body or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like in this operating room. And even if I'm sitting here, like all of a sudden I'm laying on the table and they're just like working on my body. And then I'm come back. And it's like I wasn't expecting to do that. And of course, I like align with the light to make sure that it's not a negative thing, but it's like when you align with that light, you set the intention, you're really connected, then you can know that whatever you're experiencing is for the higher good, and
Is
you
for the
can trust
highest.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's limitless. Like as we've talked about
Oh
Mother
yeah.
Earth, Pachamama, we've talked about aliens, we talked about water, like we
Yes.
talked about you reclaiming those bits and pieces from 20 1,000 years ago, right?
Yes.
Like
Oh, and
there's
there's so
so
much.
much.
I want to mention one more thing before we wrap it up too.
Yeah.
Remember when we did the fire ceremony and then we're channeling, we both had channeling. And this is the thing too. It's like you're saying, you aligned with your source energy. So you knew and you trusted into you that you were aligned. So whatever comes through is supposed to come through for whatever reason. It's supposed to come through for your healing, your shifting. And one of the things that I had been prior to being a shaman had been nervous about exploring is channeling, because there's
Mm-hmm.
different kinds of channeling that you can do, and some people merge with energy and they can speak like the person, or sometimes they'll just dictate or say out loud what they're saying to them, and their energy is beside them like they're talking to them.
Mm-hmm. That's what I experienced, but you experienced like an embodiment.
An embodiment.
Yeah.
And one of another lifetime that I experienced, all of a sudden I was just there. I could feel the energy move. It was almost like I just turned my head to one corner and all of a sudden I'm just there. And you were a witness to this, and the
Dana.
other person was there that witnessed it. And I was aware that I was here, but at the same time, like a part of me was aware that I was here, but at the same time, I was someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at that time going through this review of this energy that was being healed at that time, that had been held on to the land and to the place that we were doing sacred ceremony at. And you saw that, and my whole demeanor changed, my voice changed, like everything changed with me. And then when it was
Yeah.
released and healed, I went back, and I was like, I just turned back into where I was, and all of a sudden I just came back to me. But
Yeah.
that
That
would have
was
freaked me out.
so crazy to watch. It was
That
so
would have freaked
cool.
me out, in the past, be like, oh gosh, I don't want to do that. But when over time, when you do this work or this journey work and you align with spirit and you understand the opportunities and the possibilities for your healing, you relax and surrender into those kinds of experiences more, and they're not so scary. They just become what is being called for healing at that time for you, and you trust in that
Mm-hmm.
journey without resistance.
Yeah. And I think that it's also great to know there's a way of coming back,
Yes.
right? Is when you've experienced that, like, especially with what you do when you guide people back, and what I do too, is like, you don't just say, okay, it's time to go back to your body. You're here. It's like you
Yes.
take the trail back from where you went. You
Mm-hmm.
notice the things around you. It's the call back. A lot of shamans will use the drum, and they have a certain drum, they have a certain call to call you out of your body. And it's the same drumming to call you back into your body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taking those steps, it's being intentional, it's coming back, it's blessing your body, it's stepping into your body, it's closing that space. Even when we did sacred ceremony at the fireplace, we closed that space afterward. We set the intention that whatever it is, that nothing's going to come home with us. We've cleared everything that we need to for right now. And then we let it go. So we're not lost somewhere else, but we're back here. We're
Yes.
taking the right precautions to come back.
Exactly. Closing that sacred space, giving thanks to spirit for the support, feeling your body, doing a grounding and centering exercise to help us feel more in our bodies. That's a more gentle way. And then it's a way to also keep your energetics clean,
Mm-hmm.
as you go through this process. And so there's definitely steps that are good to learn, but yeah, this is all available
Yeah.
to everyone. And it's something that, someone who's feeling called to should definitely
Dive
explore.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that also leaves me thinking about, we have a lot of good opportunities and a lot of fun things coming up. Right now we're working on an online Gifts of Spirit class, which is going to be amazing
Yes.
come June. This is June 22. June of 2022, we are doing an ancestral healing workshop live in Utah. So that's coming up. And then we also have an amazing retreat in October of this year at Lava Hot Springs, in which we're going to be learning more about journey work. We're going to be doing journey work and sacred ceremony, and doing a lot of ancestral healing, a lot of inner child, a lot of really strengthening who you are. And so if you're really guided or you want to dive deeper with us, we would love to have you be a part of that. And of course, all of that information is on our website at themodernsages.com. But if that's something that calls to you, definitely take a look and check it out.
Yeah, we would love to work with you. It'd be wonderful to work one-on-one
Yes.
and to connect with people in a soul group, because everybody's brought together for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is brought together for a reason. We mirror things to each other that need to be seen and
Yeah.
loved. And so I think that this is going to be such a beautiful experience for us and for them. And to be able to share this class online, we have put so much love into this class. So,
Yes.
and this is, coming from prior experiences, because we've done Gifts of Spirit classes, me and you separately and together too. But we ended up putting a new one together that just because of prior experiences and things we wanted to change with that, we felt that this class really needed. And so we put all of that into this one. We put a lot of attention into it. So I'm excited to get this out there and to share.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I know that at some point when you're all settled into, I know you're going to start doing, like sacred ceremony in your backyard and fires with people as well. And Candace is in Utah and I'm in Georgia right now, but we'll both be doing those kinds of things in our environment or in our area as well, and bringing people in. And so, following Candace, and if you're in Utah or in Georgia or whatever, to see what we're doing as well, there's just going to be a lot of fun things and a lot of powerful journeys and interactions and everything like that as well. So we would love to invite you into our tribe if your heart so desires it.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast. And we hope that it really just opened up your mind and your heart and your soul to new opportunities and new ways of viewing life, because truly healing is limitless. Our spirit is limitless. And so we can definitely dive deeper into those ancient practices. So we love you and thank you so much for listening. Once again, if you have found this to be interesting or insightful or healing in any way, please send it to a friend, a relative, someone that you know who could benefit from this as well. We would love to keep sharing these amazing messages.
Thank you for watching Modern Sages. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We are so grateful for your support. If you want to follow us, we have an Instagram account as well as on Facebook. We have our podcast, which is the Modern Sages podcast as well.
And we are so excited to launch our Gifts of Spirit classes in our Modern Sages Mystery School.
Absolutely. Oh, we're so excited. So we're going to link the information below in the show notes for more information about our mystery school.